Over the last 12 months, the U.S. men's national team has defeated Mexico 3 times in a row. And on March 24th, they're going for a fourth attempt. This time, though, it's going to be at Estadio Azteca, where the U.S. men's national team have never won. Let's jump right into this video and talk about this game. Hello, my name is Alex. Don't forget to subscribe, like the video, follow me on Twitter, you know, all that good stuff. This video is coming out a little bit later than I would have hoped. Normally I like to get them up the day before the game in the morning, but unfortunately I had some issues, so it's delayed by a couple hours, so my apologies for that. As I mentioned in the intro, the US and Mexico have met 3 times in the last 12 months. The US came out on top in all 3. First, it was the Nations League, which was a come-from-behind 3-2 win where the U.S. had to fight tooth and nail to win every duel and ultimately came out on top thanks to a Christian Pulisic penalty and an Ethan Horvath penalty save on the other end. And then about a month and a half later, it was the Gold Cup final where the U.S. actually had a C team and won off of a late header from Miles Robinson. And then in November, they met in World Cup qualifying in Cincinnati. It was a famous 2-0 win for the U.S. men's national team with 2 late goals from Christian Pulisic and Weston McKennie. So first we're going to look at the table, then we're going to look at how the U.S. will set up, how Mexico will set up, and then how this game is going to play out. So we'll start with the table and discussing what the U.S. has to do to qualify for the World Cup. So there's a lot of different scenarios for the final couple of games. Some games don't matter. Any game that involves the U.S., Panama, and Costa Rica matters. So, the U.S. to qualify needs to either A, get 5 points, B, get 4 points, and Panama or Costa Rica both lose at least once. So, for instance, if the U.S. win against Panama in Orlando, that eliminates Panama. They just need Costa Rica to drop points elsewhere. Basically, Panama and Costa Rica are both trying to make up the ground on the U.S., and the U.S. do play Panama, so that should eliminate Panama. And Canada plays Costa Rica on March 24th, simultaneous with the U.S.-Mexico game, so keep an eye on that score, because if Canada tie or win, presuming the U.S. can beat Panama, it would eliminate Costa Rica from passing the U.S. in the standings. Of course, nothing can be presumed, as we learned in 2017, and we shouldn't have to rely on the games elsewhere, because Costa Rica are in good form. Panama as well are a good team and can do the job that they have to do. We'll start with how I predict the U.S. men's national team is going to set up. I think that this is the most likely starting 11. So we'll just run through it position by position. I think the goalkeeper, it is still up for grabs. Greg Berhalter said in the press conference today that it's definitely a decision they have to make between Zach Steffen and Ethan Horvath. I personally would go for Ethan Horvath, but he's just been in really good form lately in the FA Cup. In the championship, he's earned the starting job. He's been playing a lot. For me, Ethan Horvath should be starting in goal. He had a big game against Mexico in the Nations League. But for Greg Berhalter, and again, there is merit to this, Zach Steffen will probably start in goal. He played against Mexico in Cincinnati, started the Nations League game, of course. My big concern with Zach Steffen is that he has only played 1 game since January. He's been out injured since before the last window. He's only played 1 game and looked a bit shaky. He really should have done better. It was an own goal, but he should have come out and collected the ball, and it was really an error on his part that gave Southampton their lone goal in that game. So for me, I'd be much more comfortable with Ethan Horvath in goal, but if it's Zach Steffen, it's probably not a huge deal because that's what I'm expecting. As for the center back pairing, I think in all likelihood it'll be Greg Berhalter's current A pairing of Miles Robinson and Walker Zimmerman. I don't really see a world in which anyone other than Aaron Long maybe sneaks in, but between these two, they've been the go-to pairing probably since October. Miles Robinson has not been in the best form, so that is worth noting, but I really don't think that there's anyone else who can step in his place in this game, so Miles Robinson will more than likely start at left center back. And the fullbacks, right back is maybe contested between DeAndre Yedlin and Reggie Cannon. But I think Yedlin will get the start just due to his experience. He's played at the Azteca before and played pretty well in that game as well. And yeah, he's just a guy who, a matchup against Lozano, it's a bit worrying, but he can definitely do it. And he also started both the Nations League final, actually, and in Cincinnati, where he had to step in as a right back for the injured Serginho Dest. Anthony Robinson starting at left back is a no-brainer. He's the best left back in this country by a country mile, and he'll be starting. There's no doubt about it. As for the midfield, this is where we start to address some more question marks. So Tyler Adams is the best 6 that the United States has, and there's no doubt under a full-strength lineup Tyler Adams would start. The only problem is that he is on a yellow card, so there's a thinking among a lot of people that maybe we should rest him for the Panama game so that he doesn't get a yellow card and thus would have to be suspended for the, in some ways, more important Panama game because Panama is chasing us in the standings. But I disagree with that philosophy personally because say he does get rested for Mexico, starts against Panama, picks up a yellow. If we need to go into that Costa Rica game needing a win, I don't want a suspended Tyler Adams. I don't want to take that chance. So for me, Tyler Adams, I would absolutely start in Mexico. As for the 8s, Yunus Musa, I'm expecting him to start. And he's been, since he came back from injury in October window, he's been playing pretty much every game he can. I think there's only been one game that he hasn't started since he's come back into the fold. So no doubt Yunus Musa will be starting as the right-sided central midfielder. As for the left-sided central midfielder, this one is a position that is very much up for grabs. There's a good chance it could be Luca de la Torre from Heracles, though I'm not 100% sold on him, just because while he did do admirably in his World Cup qualifying first start last window against Honduras, it was a very bad Honduras team and it was at home. But you never know. I just think he's too similar to Yunus Musa. I think those two kind of fill the same role in this team, especially with Weston McKennie out. Gianluca Buzio is another option, though I don't think he suits this game whatsoever. And I think the most likely guy to come in is Kellen Acosta. He started both the Nations League and the Gold Cup final and was pretty good in both games. The Gold Cup final, he was my man of the match. So I think Kellen Acosta, even though 8 is not his best position, he's capable of playing it. And Greg Berhalter definitely sees him as an option there, so he probably will be starting next to Yunus Musa in the midfield. As for the front 3, I think 2 of these are actually locks. Christian Pulisic on the left wing, he'll start. I mean, he's the best player here. He's in tremendous form, and he had a really good game at Azteca 5 years ago, so I think Christian Pulisic starts in the left wing. As for the striker, it's got to be Jesus Ferreira right now. I mean, he just came off of scoring a hat-trick and also got an assist in the last game for FC Dallas. I think he would have started anyway. He's Greg Berhalter's favorite striker. He's a false 9. He can drop deep into the midfield, connect with the wingers. And I think Jesus Ferreira will start this game over Jordan Pefok and Ricardo Pepi. As for the right winger, I'm expecting it to be Paul Arriola. I mean, this is far from a guarantee because Tim Weah is a much better player than him, and so is Gio Reyna, but 2 things with both. Gio Reyna is just coming back from injury, so they're going to have to manage his minutes. And Tim Weah has not been playing the most minutes lately, and I also think he might be saved for later games where he may play a bigger role. Paul Arriola is someone who has the capacity to do a lot of running in this game, especially in the high altitude where that kind of thing will be a factor. So I'm expecting Paul Arriola to get the start. He also did play at Estadio Azteca 5 years ago as a right winger in that 1-1 draw in what was a really tightly contested and high-level game. Personally, I just wanted to put another possible shape into the universe because I don't totally hate this idea. If we are going to play more conservatively, sit back and try and hit them on the counter, I mean, maybe Paul Arriola is not the best fit for that. Maybe it would be Tim Weah who comes in on the right wing. But I don't hate the idea of a back 5. The only problem is that without a John Brooks or a Tim Ream here, there's not really a ball-playing defender you can put in the middle of that 3. So in this possible lineup, I put Eric Palmer-Brown, who I don't think Greg would put in, especially not in the first game because he hasn't played in a qualifier yet. But Eric Palmer-Brown has really impressed me. He's a progressive center back. He can play the ball out of the back. He can dribble it forward as well. He used to be a 6. So I think he's a guy who, if we do go for a back 3, I'd like to see in the middle of it. Though, if Greg does go with a 3, which I think is very possible, it would probably be Aaron Long who comes in, even though he hasn't played for the national team since last March a year ago. With this shape, obviously you do lose an extra number in the midfield, which is why Jesus Ferreira would have to stay in the lineup just because he can drop a lot deeper and So make sure we don't get overrun in the middle of the field. On to Mexico, and Mexico have been an interesting team to follow throughout this qualification process because going way back to last summer, even long before the qualifying even started, I kind of had the bold claim that I thought Mexico were going to seriously struggle in qualifying. I thought they might have to work really hard to even get top 3 just because they have some really blatant weaknesses in their team. And to be fair, they've gone through a lot of those struggles that I thought they would. The difference between Mexico and the US is that Mexico, even when they've been struggling and not playing beautiful soccer and just not looking very good overall, they've been able to grind out a lot of results. And that's what separates these two teams over the last 6 months, is that Mexico, even though they haven't been good, they've been able to get the results even in games that they probably didn't deserve them. I mean, we can look back at some recent examples, that Jamaica game in the last window where they had to come from behind to grind out a 2-1 win against a weak Jamaica team. And of course, they just had to grind out a 1-0 win off a late penalty at home against Panama. There was the Jamaica game earlier in qualifying where they had to rely on an 89th minute winner from Alexis Vega, I believe it was, to beat Jamaica. So they've struggled, but they've gotten the job done. According to various reports out of Mexico, this is going to be their lineup in the game. Now, I'm not 100% sure that it's true, but there have just been so many reports with this exact lineup that we're just going to run with it for now. Memo Ochoa in goal. I think he's got one really big weakness, and this is just going to be something that's exaggerated at Azteca. Obviously, he does play there week in, week out for Club America, but I think that his weakness is just handling shots from distance. So whether it's Gio Reyna, whether it's Kellen Acosta, even if Gianluca Buzio gets on the field, I think those guys are going to have to just take advantage of that. We're not going to create the most great chances in this game. We're not going to get the ball in the opposing penalty box too much. But especially Gio Reyna, who I'm expecting to come off the bench in the second half, if he can just rip some shots from distance, test Ochoa, make him work, it's just the altitude has an effect on shots from distance and makes it more challenging for Ochoa. As for the back line, I think there are a couple weak spots here because the attack for this team is really, really good. But if we look at the back line, Gerardo Arteaga has not played a lot for Mexico throughout World Cup qualifying. He was in the doghouse with Martino for a bit, though he's here in this camp, and he's expected to start in the first game over Jesus Gallardo. So he's a good player going forward, a very good option for them to have in that position. Looking at the center backs, though, that's where things get a little bit interesting. Cesar Montes is pretty good. He's really big, so that can alleviate one of the issues that they've had over the last couple games, which is that they just can't win stuff in the air. When it was Nestor Araujo, when it was Cata Dominguez in Cincinnati, that problem's not going to be there anymore with Cesar Montes. Hector Moreno is on the older side. He's not nearly as good as he used to be. He can play the ball out of the back pretty well. The biggest weakness, the biggest weak link on this Mexico team is the right back position. Jorge Sanchez is the starting right back for Club America, and he's expected to start in this game. Chaco Rodriguez was not called up, and Julian Araujo is on the bench. Obviously, former U.S. player Julian Araujo, who I guess it would have been a cool storyline for him to play in this game, but it looks like he's going to be on the bench. But Jorge Sanchez is a weak link for this team. He did score against Canada earlier in qualifying, but he's been having a really bad year. The midfield kind of speaks for itself. Edson Alvarez is a really, really good 6. He's been having a solid season for Ajax over in the Netherlands. Hector Herrera is in the best form he's been in a long, long time. He's going to be playing in front of Alvarez, and there was a rumor that he was suspended for this game. It turns out he's not. He's only had 1 yellow card throughout qualifying, so Hector Herrera is going to start. And then the left central midfielder. Now, I'm a little surprised they're not going with Eric Gutierrez, who's been doing really good for PSV. He's become a starter over the last couple months. It sounds like they're going to go with Charlie Rodriguez, who is just signed for Cruz Azul in Mexico. I think that's another, maybe a weak spot. He did start the Nations League final, I believe. He came off the bench in Cincinnati. I mean, he's an alright player going forward. He has really good games sometimes, but again, he's not the standout of this team. But the front three needs no explanation. Chucky Lozano, Tecatito Corona, Raul Jimenez. This is a frightening front three when they're in good form. And unfortunately, Tecatito is in the best form he's been in for probably the last 2-3 years. Chucky Lozano is just coming back from injury, but he looked good in his first games back. Raul Jimenez has been scoring goals in the Premier League. This Mexico team has been struggling with form over the last 12 months. A lot of their guys haven't been looking too hot. But right now, they're in really good form. The individual players are in good form. Can they put it all together in Mexico City? I guess we'll just have to wait and see. How will this game play out? Well, I'm expecting both teams to not take too many risks. I'm expecting both the US and Mexico to play a little bit conservatively, to not throw everything forward, because both teams are susceptible to being hit on the counterattack. There's been an argument among some people that the US should play a B team against Mexico to save our best players for Panama, and I just totally don't agree with that. I think we need to get every point we can get, because if we do get the win and other results go our way, even the Panama game, maybe all we need is a win and we're in. We don't need to worry about anything else. And the focus can just be on that instead of having to look over our shoulder at Costa Rica and constantly think, Costa Rica just beat Canada and Costa Rica just beat El Salvador, and suddenly we have to go to San Jose and we need points. I don't want to be in that scenario, because we'll come back to it in a couple days' time. But the U.S. have never even gotten a point in Costa Rica. So I'd like to make it is possible, if at all possible, to when we go into that game in San Jose, not need to do much. Hopefully, I want to have the ticket to the World Cup punched after, at latest, March 27th. But that all relies on if the U.S. can first try and get something out of the game at Azteca, at altitude in Mexico City against a very strong Mexico team, and then get the job done at home against Panama in front of a sold-out crowd in Orlando, Florida. So let me know what you think. Give me your predictions for this game. How do you think it's going to play out? Who's going to win? Do you think we're going to qualify? I certainly hope we do. Make sure you follow me on Twitter and TikTok if you like as well. I will see you guys later. Adios.